Happy Indictment Week, Sonny.
Oh, Indictment Week. I
Yeah.
like that. It has a nice
Again,
ring to it.
it's
Again.
happening. Yeah, it's a monthly thing
I
these
feel like
days.
we just talked about this not that long ago.
We did. And the other day I said to somebody, well, when he got indicted the first time, and then I said, boy, that's a really funny thing to say,
I can't
you know.
believe I even have to say those words.
And no kidding. Anyhow, we have a very special guest, and we're going to talk about all of that and some more things because this is the Line Drive podcast. We are thrilled and honored to be joined today by the great Tudor Dixon from the beautiful state of Michigan. Thank you very much, Tudor, for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Sonny and I both know you going way back from when you worked at Real America's Voice. Of course, you used to come and cover all the Trump rallies. That's how I knew you. But then you actually, instead of talking about politics, you got involved, ran for the Republican nomination to run for governor of Michigan. You won the nomination, and then were the Republican candidate for the governor of Michigan last year. I was honored to have a small role in that campaign, and I think you ran a really good race. I really do, and I think you deserve to win that race. And now you're doing a lot of exciting things. So welcome and tell us what you're up to.
Yeah. So, I have a podcast as well. It's the Tudor Dixon podcast. And that is fun because I get to take some of those stories from the campaign trail and have those people on and talk about it. Because when you do this for 18 months of your life, you meet a lot of interesting and unique individuals that are doing awesome things that most people will never hear about. So I get to do that. I get to sometimes go out there on some of the mainstream media and talk about Michigan, and then also working on what I believe we need to be doing on elections so that so on the Republican side, we can win, not get distracted, actually do the business of elections like the Democrats do and win.
Yeah, and we talked about that a lot during your race, and I think we've seen some evidence of that. And I think voter turnout was really high, but a lot of that was attributed to the Democrats being turned out. And I think in the months afterwards, it's not just in Michigan but everywhere. It's like the Democrats, they're just better at elections than we are, right? In all phases of the actual mechanics of it, right? Do you
Right.
think that's
Well,
part of the problem?
I think so, but I think also there was a lot of there's been distraction on the Republican side for years, because I think that when Donald Trump came out in 2016, he was somewhat of an anomaly from the standpoint of he brought out voters that Republicans had never had, and still voters that don't vote for other Republicans. So there's a Trump group, and I know people say there's no such thing as a Trump voter, but there actually is.
Oh,
There
there
are these
is.
unique people. Yeah, they voted for Obama and then they voted for Trump, but they don't always vote either. So there are people that just don't ever vote and they come out for Donald Trump. So I think that the Democrats were kind of taken by surprise in 2016 because they did not expect that reaction. And then the Republicans got sort of complacent, like, oh, we have a better message. People love us and they're going to come out for us. And we're winning over the working class. And we've got this whole new patch of voters that we never had before, but we didn't. Donald Trump did. And so then 2020 came around. The Democrats, in the meantime, in those 4 years, were saying, what do we have to do to win? And they took elections in a totally different direction. They went into social media. They learned about how to target people with technology. They started micro-targeting. They started having these massive community organizing organizations on the ground that went around and found people and got their ballots. And whether or not they were doing some nefarious things, for the most part, they were doing the business of elections, while Republicans were saying, we're so popular, people are going to come and vote for us. And then that didn't happen. And then I think that after 2020, people got really confused because they said, well, the Democrats must have done something. And still, because of that kind of distracted people from seeing what really was going on. And in 22, there was not that push to go toward technology. There was not that ground game. There was not that idea that we have to get 9 voter contacts, get the people out to the polls, chase the absentee ballots, and we screwed up. So we have to change that.
Well, Tudor, can I ask you touched on this a little bit with social media. The Democrats have done a great job of weaponizing social media for the younger voters, whether it be TikTok or Instagram, social media is huge. I mean, it's huge for all ages, but definitely for those first time voters, the 18-year-olds. How do we going into 2024? How do we take better advantage of that and use that to our advantage than we did in the midterms?
Yeah, well, I think that's a tough situation because I'll take Michigan, for example. We've had everybody come out and say, you can't be on TikTok. TikTok is incredibly dangerous. And it is. We do know that there is the ability for the Chinese to get into your phone, to spy on you. We know that there's dangers around TikTok. But Michigan, TikTok's been banned on all elected officials' devices except for Gretchen Whitmer. So conveniently, she can still go out.
She's still
there and
scrolling.
Wait. Hold on a second. There's a carve out in state law.
Yeah.
Just for no other device can have it in state government except for Gretchen Whitmer.
Yes.
How?
Yeah.
That's unreal.
That's crazy.
So she has a TikTok account and she communicates on the TikTok account. And that makes it so that the only government official communicating on TikTok is the Democrat. So you think about that, and that's a space where we aren't. It is really a problem because regardless of whether or not this is a bad app, a lot of young people are on it. So how do we get that message to them? And there are ways, we have all of this data, but we're really not using the data the way that we should be. And so if we were using the data correctly, we could micro-target. So if I had your information, I could tell you, this is kind of scary, but I could tell you where you shop, what kind of car you drive, where you buy your gasoline, which gasoline you purchase, whether or not you own a gun, where your kids go to school, all of these things. I mean, down to the point where I could go to a church and say, I can tell you the next 3 couples that will get divorced based on their purchasing habits and what I know from just searching in their phone. Well, the Democrats have this. They have all of this. So they can micro-target that message directly to people, no matter what age they are. So even if you're not on TikTok, you can go into, okay, this person, according to this is the message that's going to resonate with them. And so I'm going to make sure that when they pull up a website, they're going to get this ad. When they are pulling up their Instagram, they're going to get this ad. I'm going to be able to text message directly to them. I will be able to get mail directly to their mailbox. I will know what campus these young people are on, and I will be able to target them there in person. I mean, it is much more advanced than what Republicans are doing. So we just have to get there.
Right.
Yeah, I think the having worked with some of the digital guys on the Trump campaign in 2020, Gary Kobe is what I'm thinking about. He ran our digital efforts, and he knows how to micro target people.
Yeah.
And my wife is in a privacy attorney, and she has to deal with because of the internet, it's worldwide. There's lots of overlapping laws. What's legal in Germany is not the same thing as what's legal here in the United States and all that. That's why you get these things from Twitter every once in a while. If somebody objected, I'm sure you get them sometimes. People object, report your tweets for abusive behavior or whatever they say. And then it's always checking it against German law. Have you ever noticed that?
Yes.
That some of these things came in and say, you might have broken the law in Germany. Like, oh no.
Right. That's why I don't live in Germany.
But some of the things like the EU laws that govern marketing and these sorts of things on social media apps like Facebook or Twitter or everything, they ban and they prevent people from micro-targeting. So you can't look at those things and feed someone a specific ad based on known tendencies or what they consume on the app, which I'm actually sort of against a ban. Because
that you also see Italy has banned AI, and that's how that you use that technology too, because a lot of times it's the AI that's digging through and telling you what people like and what they don't.
Right. And so, I mean, AI raises all kinds of different things. AI, I don't want to sound like a boomer here or anything, but it kind of concerns me, right? I mean, we don't.
Me too.
Sonny, thank you very much. You're the youngest one here, I think.
Did you see the DeSantis, the AI that they made DeSantis into Michael Scott from The Office?
Yes.
I mean, that's so
it was really,
real.
I know, it was really funny. And then DeSantis put up a web video that had some AI images in it.
Right. Yes.
Of Trump hugging Fauci, which never happened, but they're AI generated images and everything. And Twitter went first. I mean, I get it because you've seen other stories about people run TV ads and they accidentally have B-roll of Russian battleships in there or something. They're talking about the U.S. Navy and they have Russian ships in there. But so it's creepy what AI can do.
Yeah.
And it's
Oh,
very
absolutely.
slippery. It's a very slippery slope because once this starts happening with kind of campaign videos, it just keeps rolling into official videos or whatever. And then you want to talk about misinformation. I think that when AI starts being used more and more and more, there's going to be a ton of misinformation out there.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think that's the scariest thing is, and I mean, even when you see people, they have the morning shows where they go talk to people at restaurants, and these folks are sitting there and they're saying, my biggest concern is I don't know if what I see, it used to be you saw something, you heard it with your own ears, you knew it was true, and now you really have no faith in what you see. But so many people are gathering their news from an unchecked source. So if you think about it, if you're watching the news, I mean, obviously we have bias, but you know that they're not going to play a video that it was faked and tell you it's real, or you hope that we're not going to get to that point like Chinese state media or something. But if you're getting it from TikTok, if you're getting it from Instagram, Twitter, any of those places, you do have to question, what could I be seeing that they're going to create? I mean, I was told by somebody someday it will be that you will go to the vet in the morning and the grocery store in the afternoon, and your politician who's trying to get your vote, you'll get an ad later that day saying, I had to stop with my dog at the vet this morning and go to the grocery store this afternoon. I'm just like you. I get you.
Yeah, I believe that. Listen, we sound like CNN here talking about misinformation and how dangerous it is. But this is kind of different. Like, this is not Jake Tapper saying we're not going to show Trump while he's in the Versailles Cuban cafe like he was in yesterday in Miami. And Tapper said, take that down. Take that down. We've seen enough of that. So he lies and we don't put him on the air. It's not that kind of misinformation. This is different. This is like manufacturing things that can be presented as real and look like real videotape or real pictures and passed off as actual events when it never occurred. This is not
honestly.
This is not a difference of opinion about how you interpret something. It's manufacturing something completely fake.
And I think because that seems to be the next step in all of the micro-targeting. I mean, when I've talked to people on the Republican side about even micro-targeting people with the messaging that you want to get out to them, they say, don't you feel like that's kind of cheating though? I mean, shouldn't we do elections the old way? Wait a minute. You have to be using the same tools your opponent is using. We are running elections the old way and we're losing. And the crazy thing is we're winning some because our messaging is so much better and our plans are so much better. So if we were actually able to get the message to the people and they could hear truly from us instead of the manipulated version from our opponents, they would vote. They would go out and vote for Republicans. So we have to get in the game. I know this is scary, but we're not talking about manipulating. We're talking about reaching people in different ways that we've never reached them before.
But let me ask you this, though. I've worked on a lot of campaigns, but I've never actually been a candidate. And you just finished running statewide, which is a pretty grueling thing, I would imagine. But how much of it is persuasion? Like if you're talking about the voter, you've got some that are in the Republican camp no matter what, some in the Democrat camp no matter what, and then you have some in the middle who might be persuadable. And so messaging matters for them, certainly. But isn't most of the game actually just producing or collecting ballots? Right.
Yeah.
You're just generating ballots, and the message war is secondary to the function of turning out ballots.
Message matters in some states and not so much in others. So if you're in Texas or Florida, those are more messaging states. And if you're in Pennsylvania, you're fully a ballot state. So you can be John Fetterman and win, really. I mean, you could be a piece of paper and win because it is about getting those ballots. And there is a great ballot chase in Pennsylvania on the Democrat side, and obviously not so much on the Republican side. Now, Michigan is similar to that. Message and ballot chase are about as important as each other. And we had strong messaging on the Democrat side, but they followed up with that ballot chase. So you saw in Michigan, the highest number of young people for 18 to 29-year-olds across the country come out, and they came out mostly for Democrats. And so those are areas we're not reaching people. We're not reaching young people, and we're still not reaching suburban moms. But they know that they have a hold on those groups, and they have done a great job of targeting them with anti-Republican messages. And like, I want people to know, it's not just that they're targeting them with the messaging that, hey, this is what we're going to do, vote for us. They're going after them and saying, don't vote for these people because this is what they'll do to you, whether it's true or not.
Yeah. And, I think there's too many on our side. It's kind of a parallel to what you were saying about TikTok, although not as sinister as TikTok, because I think TikTok and the people who own it and run it are bad actors. They're Chinese communists, obviously. However, it is a very useful weapon that we're not using. Joe Biden
Mhm.
says, "Oh, I support banning it on all federal devices," but then he opens a brand new room in the White House press briefing room specifically for TikTokers and for influencers. So
Right.
obviously, he intends on still using it. But it's like when you hear people like disarming themselves and attempting to disarm other Republicans in election ways by saying that they object to the process, to the practice of ballot harvesting because they
Mhm.
because they correctly believe that it invites fraud. And so even where it is legal, some people on our side refuse to do it out of principle, which to me, I mean, great, fine. You take a stand and you stand on your principles. You think this is ripe for cheating. I get it. I agree with that. However, it's the law that it's permissible, and the other side is going to do it. And if they do it and we don't, we will lose every time.
And
Every time.
something else that in Michigan, you can do this. So in Michigan, you can send out absentee ballot applications to everyone. So they can get the Republican list, and the local county can send the absentee ballot applications out to people and then go chase those, right? So you can go to house and say, hey, can you send your application back? Then you know exactly who got their absentee ballot. And now we're going to have early voting as well. So it's not just getting the absentee ballot back or the application. Then you go back and you say, okay, I know you got your ballot on this day. You have a box about a block from your house. Are you going to drop it off on Wednesday? Okay, I'll be back on Thursday. And then they have an app on the Democrat side that says, these are the houses you have to go back to today. And they go back and they go back and they go back until they get that ballot. And I was talking to one of our door knockers on the Republican side, and I was explaining this, and she goes, well, that just feels wrong, just hounding them and telling them that we have to get their ballot back. And I said, they're doing it on the other side. You got to
Yeah.
do this. Don't feel, I
Right.
mean, they're going to get it from them. You might as well be there too.
Maybe they'll vote just to shut you up, right?
Right. Exactly.
And that's fine.
Why not?
That works too.
My question is, just as I'm like processing all of this and trying to think about solutions to it, is whose shoulder does this responsibility fall on? Is it the state-run GOP, or is it their responsibility to get out the vote? Is it smaller organizations, things like AFPI or whoever? Is it on just honestly the citizen? Is it your civic duty to tell your friends about how to vote, about what's going on? I mean, I'm just trying to think about ways we get past this problem and we find a solution for it.
Yeah, so I've seen all of the arguments of the state party needs to do this and the RNC that, and I think people really need to understand the RNC is playing in federal races and presidential races, and the RNC is not going to come into your local state race and have any influence on it whatsoever. They just don't have that kind of reach, and they can only pick as many races as they can afford to be in too. But if you look at the Democrat side, it's not the DNC. It is not the Democrat state party that's doing this. It's the outside groups that are coming in. And when I say that, I'll pick on Michigan again. For example, in Traverse City, Michigan, there was a seat that had always been a Republican seat, and the Democrats were after the seat. And you can see their playbook. I mean, if you look this up, you can see their playbook. It's very clear. They have organization after organization, and those organizations, I mean, it's almost like a pyramid where they decide where to distribute the money, and they get money from all over the country. And then they put it into these specific races. And this one, for example, was called an organization called We the People. And it was formed by someone in Traverse City who said, you know what? If we flip this seat, we can get driver's licenses for illegal aliens. So why don't we get all of the illegal aliens, all of the undocumented people in the area, and we will pay them to run the ground game on the election, to do all of the work and to do all the micro-targeting and all of this. It looks as though they even had their candidate on their C4 payroll. And so they brought in, for one district in Michigan, somewhere between $6 and $9 million for a state house seat.
Wow.
This is
Oh my
not the
gosh.
Democrat Party. This is not the DNC. This is an organization that decided to go after this seat, and they created this. And now they've become powerful. Now they have about, I think they've raised another 9 million, and it looks like they'll have more going into 24. We had another group in Michigan that raised 16 million. I mean, you think about this. In my race, we raised totally primary and general under 30 million. So these are just organizations that you have this giant umbrella across the United States in the Democrat Party it's called Arabella, and they are bringing in all of this money, and they have $1.6 billion right now. So they will divvy that up to organizations on the ground and say, okay, you go, you target this, you get this seat. We just don't have that infrastructure yet. But that's what we need to be doing in each state, building up these organizations that can just target different seats in different areas.
Did you say 1.6 billion is the amount of money that the Arabella has on hand?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
I mean, I remember I worked for Ron Johnson also in the last cycle, and Arabella was, that popped up in a variety of different things in Wisconsin, similar to what you're describing right there. That's, I mean, gosh, where does all that money come from? The 1.6.
Right.
Well, right. And you think so it's coming from, I mean, mostly New York and California, but across the country from Democrats, obviously. But I think in 2020, the entire political system, like that entire election cycle, $11 billion was spent across the board. So I think they already have 1.6 billion waiting for 24. That's amazing. And that's not even the individual candidates. That 11 billion encompassed everybody.
Yeah. I seem to remember that the Trump campaign in 2020, just the campaign itself, not counting the RNC or any other external entities, I think raised and spent 1.2 billion. I think that's right. But that was just the campaign itself. So this outfit has more than that already.
Yes.
I mean, that's astounding. So, switching gears a little bit to to current events. Did you hear? I don't know if I'm breaking this news to you. Did you hear that President Trump got indicted again?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I said to my daughters, I was like, "So President Trump got arrested," and they're like, "Again?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Here's two 10-year-olds."
It's so.
What? I thought you just told us this happened.
I know. I was saying that to somebody else. Like, oh, well, the first time he got indicted, which is a really strange thing to say. What do you think it does, if anything, to the 2024 sweepstakes?
Well, first of all, I think it's sad when these are, for my girls, I have girls that are two 10-year-olds, an 11-year-old and a 14-year-old. And when you think about the fact that they're hearing that it's a normal, or they are probably thinking it's a normal thing for a former president to be indicted. That's insane. And that's a sad way to grow up, that you could see this and think that it's okay. Because if it's happening in the United States, it sort of feels like it must be okay, but it's not okay. And it's been an interesting effect, right? Because I think that the Democrats, well, it's hard to tell. Did the Democrats do it because they knew that it would boost him and they want to run against him? Or did they do it because they think that they can legitimately put him in jail? I think either one they're happy with, right? I think they view this as a win-win. Now, obviously, it has had the effect of boosting him. I think a lot of people thought that Ron DeSantis would get into this race. I think, first of all, they thought he'd get in a lot earlier. And had he gotten in a lot earlier, I think he'd be a lot higher in the polls right now. But he chose what he chose. And he's not doing as well as people thought. And I think that has some of the folks that were supporting him a little bit panicked, and they're looking around and saying, well, who is going to be the one that could possibly rise above Trump? And at this moment, we don't see that happening, but it's early on.
It is early on. And I love to put in this caveat every time we talk about this. Anybody who tells you that they know exactly what's going to happen in the Republican primaries is lying to you. No one knows exactly what's going to happen. But back to the idea of the fact that the former president has been indicted twice, once in the state level and once by the feds, and to a child that's just seems crazy,
Yeah.
But here's the question. This is I think the truest test. I play this game with myself. Ask yourself that if he were not running for president again, do you think he would have been indicted either in New York or by the feds in Florida? If he were not running for re-election again, would they have left him alone?
Yeah.
And if the answer to that question is yeah, they would have left him alone if he wasn't running for president. If that's the answer that you come up with, then it proves that it's political. Because
I think
if they weren't running,
100%.
you know. So
But
and
here's
that
the other question I have: is Joe Biden actually running, or are they waiting for something tragic to happen with him, or is there a plan to come out and say that something tragic is happening with him and he can't run? Because let's face it, Gavin Newsom is running for president.
he sure is making a lot more noise than he was 6 weeks ago.
He just said he wasn't. He told Hannity that he wasn't. So that would be interesting.
What in the world would compel him? Let's think about what the thought process has to be, or what it could possibly be, that would lead Gavin Newsom to appear on Hannity.
Right.
I thought the same exact
It's
thing.
those weird voters that I'm
Right.
telling you Trump has, and he thinks I can dig into that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So imagine. Go ahead, Sonny. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I was hearing on the radio talking about the Trump indictment, and they were talking about Trump's calendar coming up because he has everything happening with Alvin Bragg and then coming up with Letitia James, and then the Georgia could be coming up soon. He has a lot of hearings and court dates to make coming up pretty soon. So it will be interesting to see how that plays with the campaign trail. You know, he got indicted on Tuesday and then flew straight to New Jersey for a fundraiser. And I don't know if the numbers have come out from his fundraiser or not, but I think all of these lawsuits against him are going to be such huge boost for his fundraising numbers, especially if he plays into it.
And he's out there, you know, every time this happens, then he's out there. They're doing interviews with him. They're bringing him back into the fold. So like I said, is that what the Democrats wanted? It doesn't seem to have cramped his style. I mean, he doesn't seem like he's getting shaken by it at all. He's out there speaking. He seems like he's in good spirits. I mean, I happened to be having dinner at Mar-a-Lago the night that the first time.
The first night.
Like you said, that's so weird, you know, when you say that about the president. But the first time I happened to be there with some of my supporters, and it was scheduled weeks ahead of time. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be so strange to be there, like essentially at his house when he comes home from New York. You would never have known. He was like, how are you? Keep working hard. So in such good spirits. I'm like, how does he do this? And I think that's the thing that really gets under their skin is that he never lets it show. If it bugs him, he never lets it show.
That's what Jake Tapper was mad about when yesterday when he's I don't need to see that. He's running around like it's a campaign event. Like Jake Tapper gets to decide when candidates do and don't campaign. Hey, look, the guy got indicted. He can do whatever the hell he pleases, right? I don't know why.
Right. And it wasn't, the funny thing about that was it wasn't his speech that he didn't want to be played. It was that the people loved him in that restaurant. And that was just driving him crazy.
Yeah, I don't need to see that. Folks, did you see the little clip of Tapper? Folks in the control room, we don't need to see that.
Yeah, I know.
Stop playing that stuff. So funny. I've seen that before. We've seen enough of that. Yeah. And I thought, you thought you had him dead and buried, didn't you?
Right. Exactly.
But so imagine you are, let's say you're Ron DeSantis, right? And you've been planning this. You've known you'd wanted to run for president for a long time, probably since you were back in Congress and you were contemplating your first campaign for governor of Florida, which is an obvious good springboard if you win and get reelected, which you did. Nice springboard to run for president. So you've been gearing up for this for a good long while, and you have it timed in such a way that really this is the best race for you to enter. And you enter, and you have Trump in here as the former president, and he's acting like, and he's being treated like he's the incumbent really effectively because he's former president. And all these indictments are happening, and every time something terrible happens to Trump, his numbers get stronger and stronger and stronger. And DeSantis just be looking around and going, what on God's green earth is happening here? Why can't I break through? And I'm just not sure. DeSantis may have hit a ceiling at around 2021 or something like that.
It's so hard because, you know, everybody says politics is a lot of timing and a little bit of luck. And it's not incredibly lucky to be on the ticket with Donald Trump. He's a hard guy to go after. He's a hard guy to attack. Like we said, he has a certain voting base that other people don't really dig into. Now, I think DeSantis would have gotten that voting base had Trump not been on the ticket. But the battle between the two, it doesn't seem like people like that. And I think there was this thought process that, well, he could go up against this Goliath because, there was a movement in the country that they wanted someone different, but still a fighter. And it just seems like the timing was off. It seems like the Democrats threw it when they started to do this to him, because people were like, hey, if this is going to happen to Trump, it's going to happen to anybody. And you see that it would happen to him, because it was Gavin Newsom himself who came out and said, I want to take legal action against him for kidnapping. So that's already started with DeSantis. So you're already seeing all of the legal woes that we saw the minute Trump was elected. The man never got a fair shake. He never got to have a full presidency because he was under attack constantly. So they're already going after DeSantis. So DeSantis is getting attacked by his own side. He's getting attacked by the Democrats already. And it's just, he's getting so piled on. You can see that his donors are trying to say, come on, step up, you're going to do it. But he also is not Trump. And that's a tough guy to go up against when you are not necessarily so comfortable with people. And Trump is that guy everybody thinks they could just have dinner with and sit down and have a beer with. And DeSantis is not coming off that way. It's a tough race.
Yeah, boy, Donald Trump has really pulled something off. To be a multi-billionaire, to live in a world that is surrounded by things that are gold-plated, right? He flies on his own airplane that has got his name in big letters, big capital letters on the side of the airplane. I mean, he's the most obvious rich guy that you could ever see walking down the street, right? And yet, Joe Lunchbox loves the guy.
Yeah,
it's how he pulled that off it's the things that he talks about, and it's how he talks about it. It's amazing.
Probably his love for McDonald's has something to do with that too.
I mean, look, don't discount all those little parts of his personality. It's the whole thing.
And Waffle House now. Did y'all see that when he stopped at Waffle House?
And he says the things that you would say, and you don't ever, I mean, I think that everybody says it was not presidential enough, but that's what resonates. People are like, yeah, I would say that too. That's how I talk too. So I like that he talks that way. And even though he has all this money, like, he's the American dream, right? And when we grew up, we watched him and we were like, oh, this guy is amazing. And then we watched him on The Apprentice and we thought he was so cool. And the Democrats thought he was cool too. And then all of a sudden he becomes president. And now he's getting attacked. So then all of those people that loved that personality, they have like ownership over it. Then they become defensive of him. And it's not something, I think, like you said, you can't predict a primary. I don't think anyone could have predicted that at all. I mean, look, when you look back at 2016, even Republicans were like, oh, yeah, that's a joke, right? Mm-hmm. But it wasn't.
I made sure I got tickets to the Republican debate out in Cleveland in I think it was in 2015, the first Republican debate where there were so many people on stage and all that stuff. And I told my wife, I said, I want to go out there and see the Trump show while it lasts, right? Because I didn't know, I had no idea he was going to make it all the way through and become the nominee and win and become president. I mean, who knew?
Right.
It's an amazing thing. But if you look at he has the most unique way of doing. Not all these things are positive all the time, but he has the most unique way of making everything about him all the time. Yeah. And so his opponents in the Republican primary here, I don't know, 7 or 8 of them now, they're all forced to issue comments about him all the time. And about half of the field issued statements that were at least attacked the Department of Justice for selective prosecution and political bias. And then you have, the Chris Christies and Asa Hutchinsons of the world who just attack him and say that he's a bad man. But half of the field, including the only guy who's even remotely in the contest, Ron DeSantis, they all have to issue statements defending the guy against the DOJ.
Has DeSantis said anything? Because I think as of Tuesday, he hadn't.
He did
tweeted anything?
He tweeted when the indictment happened, but not since the arraignment or the arrest of this week. But he had a tweet that said, "The weaponization of federal law enforcement represents a mortal threat to a free society. We have for years witnessed an uneven application of the law depending upon political affiliation. Why so zealous in pursuing Trump, yet so passive about Hillary or Hunter? The DeSantis administration will bring accountability to the DOJ, excise political bias, and end weaponization once and for all. So he did. He said that DOJ was terrible. They're doing this to Trump. They didn't do it to Hillary or Hunter. And then he offers himself as the guy who's going to clean it up.
Mm.
You know, and if you're down by 40 points, spending 2/3 of your statement sticking up for the guy you're trying to catch up to is not an ideal situation, I would say.
But it's like he has to, because if he doesn't, then, you know, the Trump voters that he's going to need eventually, if he were to become the
Right.
nominee, would remember that. They would remember that he didn't stand up for Trump. And Vivek, he did a whole speech calling on the other candidates to say that they would pardon him. And I don't know if they all ended up joining or if he's the only one who has said he would pardon him.
I think he's the only
No,
one.
I think even I believe even Mike Pence came out and said, well, I want to see how it plays out. And Vivek was kind of criticized for that as well. They were like, oh, don't you want the legal system to play out? And I don't think he's shaken by that, because he clearly planned this. I mean, he was there outside of the courthouse holding a press conference, which was a unique strategy. And we were seeing some unique strategies.
That's what I'm talking about. I mean, these are guys who ostensibly want to win the nomination.
Right.
And this guy, one of the candidates, Vivek, is having a press conference basically promoting, that has the effect of promoting the candidacy of the other guy, even though he would tell you, no, I'm running for president myself, and we should all agree to pardon him. But I mean, that's the only, if you rated all from a scale of say 0 to 10, 0 meaning you are breaking with Trump as far as you can break with Trump, and 10 meaning that you're basically campaigning for the guy, Vivek's response is like a 9.5.
Right,
the only reason why it's not a 10 is because he didn't withdraw from the race and endorse Trump. Right. That's the only thing he didn't do.
So you have to ask, what is he really angling for vice president? Is he angling for a cabinet position? I mean, what is the plan there? Is it that he really thinks that he can beat him? And I do think that there are some folks that think there's a chance that something legal goes down with him and he's out, and then I'll be the one that picks up all those voters. And you never know. I mean, anything could happen. This is the most bizarre race. And we're just in June of the year before,
I know. Can you imagine?
Oh, I can't think of what is going to happen. But I think there's been some interesting strategies. I mean, you talk about Chris Christie. What an interesting strategy he has to go after Trump the way he is. And he's criticizing Trump for being this like kind of bombastic guy that makes these nasty comments. And he's like, nobody wants that, but you're literally doing the same thing right now, So you're like, well, that's an interesting strategy, because I don't know that you're making yourself so lovable by doing that. I get it. I think I mean, everybody has to have a different attempt, right? Because when you're in a primary, you have to be different. And really, your views are almost all very similar, right? You're not going to be that much different when you're running against another Republican. So how do you outshine them? And I think there is that approach, the Chris Christie approach. I'm going to come out there. I'm going to be loud. I'm going to go after the big prize and see if I can take him down. And then maybe people will see me. Vivek seems to be almost partnering with Trump and saying, well, if something happens, then I'll slip in and I'll take over his position. I mean, then you have Tim Scott. He's taking a totally different approach. And I think he's one of the few candidates that can be incredibly unique here, because he's a guy who was raised by a single mom. He has an interesting history, rose up from that position, became a senator, and he is incredibly even-keeled, very calm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he goes on, what an interesting take he has to go on The View.
Yes.
And then very calmly say to them, let me tell you what it's like to be me.
I'm tempted to say that everybody should do that kind of thing, but you have to be able to do it and do it well.
Right.
Not everybody can go in there and sit at that desk and actually own the place the way he did.
Yeah. And I think he did a really good job. Away.
Yeah, he was really good. Really good. But with Chris Christie and obviously that's what he's doing. And the other day, it's funny how you see the media pick up on certain words, but they were calling him the kamikaze candidate, right? Because all he's trying to do is, dive bomb and take down the SS Trump. But that's been tried before. How is that? what Chris Christie is doing, how is it different from what Liz Cheney did for 2 whole years with the January 6th Commission? And what was the result of that? Trump came out of it just as strong as ever. Right?
Right.
How is it different?
I don't know if he thinks that there is the chance that he has. I think that people see this as a different lane. They see it as, okay, he's really struggled. He's lost a lot of his big financial support. There are a lot of people who are saying now we'll go to DeSantis. I think that there is a chance that he thinks I can be the guy that throws myself in front of the train and DeSantis steps in. But I just, I mean, it's early, as you've said, but DeSantis has not, it's like he hasn't made that play. And things have been a little bit off when you've looked at his campaign. It's almost like his team never gets anything just right. He's in a strange outfit. The flag is touching the ground. Things are not set up. The podium's not there. It's like these little things actually matter. Twitter, I mean, look at the announcement in and of itself is a total bomb. And people say you can get past the announcement, but then get past it and do the other things well. But it still keeps being like, hey, how did he get up there in a sweaty shirt in front of everybody? I mean, it's just weird things.
Yeah. And, but again, it's the Trump factor too that he has to deal with. It's all those things that you just said, but it's the Trump factor too. I saw he had a tweet today and it was about illegal immigration, which is a totally great issue for him to hammer on. And it's a great issue for all Republicans to run on. But that's not what anybody in politics right now is talking about. They're all talking about the Trump indictment. And you can tweet about these other things all you want and go on the stump and talk about them. And the people in the room hear what you're saying. But that's not the overriding thing. And you just can't. It's so difficult to cut through that thing. And I don't know. These people keep entering the race. And
I know.
I think that's the obvious thing to draw from that is that they're all getting in there in case something does happen to Trump's candidacy and his campaign. And they think, each one of them thinks, well, maybe I'm the one who can catch lightning in a bottle and everybody will rally behind me. If anybody thought that DeSantis was that guy, these people wouldn't be still coming into the race, right?
That's what I think so many people said to me at the beginning. Wait a minute, if we all thought this was going to be a DeSantis Trump race, why are these people getting in?
Mm-hmm.
And I think I think it's partially ego. I think there are some people who thought, like we said, you could just jump in front of the Trump train and stop it and then let somebody else pass through. I think there's a lot of factors here, but I think that people just, you get voices in your ear and you're like, you can do this. You can do this. Yeah, I can do this. I'll go out there and do this. And now it just seems like the more people you get in, the more you guarantee that spot for Trump.
Yeah. I mean, it's a long road, but man, everything is lining up his way. I mean, we'll see. Iowa, somebody could be a surprise in Iowa, as happens sometimes. Somebody told me that, who wins Iowa? Take a look at who talks about Jesus the best.
That's right.
And a lot of times that actually happens, and so we'll see. It's going to be the first 4 states will tell the story, I think, as the trend is going to go. But even that,
and that's the question, I think, for Mike Pence, and I think that's the lane that Mike Pence will take is, can he get the evangelicals out? And so the concern there is, will the evangelicals come out in the general? Because that seems to be our problem, is that we don't get the evangelical vote. So if that's your play, that you're going to get the evangelical vote, then I think that's when this micro-targeting, this ground game is even more important, because we have not had churches engage. Oftentimes churches will say, we're not engaging because we don't want to be involved in the political process. We want to separate church and state. Well, that's not what that means. And if you are in the church and you're not involved in politics, you could potentially lose your religious liberty. I mean, Christians have never been under attack in this country like they are now. So it really is important that evangelical vote does come, but can it?
Well, Sonny cares about the pro-life messaging to folks, don't you, Sonny?
I sure do. Yes. And I think you're right. Mike Pence will probably play very well with the evangelicals, with the pro-life group. But I think I just don't think he's quite strong candidate enough to go up against Trump. And Trump's going to take he's going to claim victory for a lot of the things that he did while he was president. He had a ton of pro-life victories while he was in office.
He did.
And of course, Mike Pence helped with that. But ultimately he's going to be the one that gets the kudos for that.
Look at Mike Pence. Mike Pence has a non-zero chance. Really, he really does. It's not. I don't think nobody could say nope. He has absolutely zero chance, no chance at all. There is a path for Mike Pence. There is.
Maybe.
There are some others that are not likely.
I think it's a hard battle to
It's a
watch
hard one for
for
sure.
everybody. You know, I mean, I think vice president against president is tough.
Mhm.
Regardless of, I mean, I you know, I think that there are people who absolutely love him. I think there are some people that are frustrated with him, but I think, you know, we all cheered on a Trump Pence ticket, and that just is it's just so hard to see.
It is. I don't know. Do you know Mike Pence? Have you ever spent any time around
Yes.
him? Yeah,
Yes.
he's just 100% the most decent, nice guy you will ever encounter. And he's a really good politician. He's a very careful politician. Man, can he deliver a speech? You know, he was
a very nice compliment.
Yeah, right.
At the time.
Right. I know. So yeah, you're right. It's hard to watch going on because I like both guys an awful lot. And so we'll see. We're keeping you for a lot longer than we said we would, Tudor. We really appreciate you stopping by.
It's been a fun conversation.
It has. Tell the folks what it is that you're up to and how they can find your podcast.
Yes, you can go to TudorDixonPodcast.com or iHeart, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, it's there. It's the Tudor Dixon Podcast. And then follow me on Twitter at Tudor Dixon, Facebook at Tudor Dixon. You can find out everything we're doing right there.
You going to run for office again?
I say maybe it's like pregnancy and you forget and then you do it again.
No, don't tell me that.
Yeah, Sunny's pregnant. Sunny's pregnant right now. She's about to pop.
Oh,
Yes.
wait. Is this number 1 or number 2?
Oh, number 1.
This is number
Yes.
1.
Yes, number
That
1.
is so exciting. So yeah, I mean, I have 4 now, but technically I had twins. So it was like 3, and then the last one brought a friend, and so that was more exciting. But I will tell you, it's funny when you have your first baby. People in the delivery room are like, "Yay, good job!" And then you have 2 babies, and there's so many people in there because there's nurses for everybody, and it's like you won the Super Bowl. People are like, "Oh my gosh, you did it!" And I remember being like, "Wow, this is so much more exciting when you have 2." But 1 is amazing.
Oh man!
And
yes,
I'm glad
very
that 1 was the
excited.
first, because I remember I always wanted twins growing up. And then when I got home with the first one, I'm like, oh, it feels kind of like I dodged a bullet with that one. This seems kind of hard. And then eventually got those twins.
Well, we'll hold off on the twins for now. I'm trying to get through this first boy, and then we'll see how the rest come.
That
she
is
knows-
so congratulations.
She knows it's a boy. What's the due date, Sunny, again?
August 14th. So I only have
Yay.
about 9.5 weeks left.
Oh, that's my middle daughter's birthday. So
Oh, really?
it's a good birthday.
No kidding.
That is
Yeah.
good. Well, I'm hoping
Yeah.
he comes early because I'm ready.
Yeah, Mama,
You
it
You
gets
want
hot.
it fully baked. Just
It gets-
Yes.
Yeah,
let
that's
nature
true.
take its course. I know.
That's true. You do
But
want
I
it
know
really
what you
big.
mean.
It gets hot in North Carolina in the summer.
It
too,
sure
Sunny.
does.
It's
Yes.
going to be terribly
That's why God
uncomfortable.
helped us invent air conditioning.
Yes, which is where I will be for
Yeah.
the next 9 weeks.
Take that, Greta Thunberg.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wait till she's pregnant in August.
Oh,
Yeah,
gosh.
she's too young for that. So anyway, Tudor, thank you so much, and good luck to you, and Godspeed. And I understand your podcast is very successful, and congratulations, it's well deserved.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me on today.
You bet. Thanks a lot, and Sunny, thank you.
Thank
This
you.
has been the Line Drive Podcast.